the first step of this framework is authentic acknowledgement. When you think about the identity walk that we just did, that is also a form of authentic acknowledgement. And when I think about authentic acknowledgement, what comes up for me is awareness and self-awareness and understanding where you are in your journey in this moment. But the reason why I felt like it was so important to put authentic in front of it is because we have to be honest with ourselves. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, how are you going to be honest with anybody else? And another thing is, I always say this, you can't hate yourself into healing. You can't hate yourself into happiness, and you can't hate yourself into health. So when you are on a journey of growth, when you are on a journey of transformation, it is so important for you to, yes, authentically acknowledge and be aware of where you are. But if you are so focused on not liking the person looking back at you in the mirror, when the transformation does come that you are asking for, you might not even be able to recognize it. You might not be able to see it because you're in a space of lack and you're in a deficit. But when you come authentically in who you are, we got a lot of educators in here. I used to work with young people for a long time. And we always said you got to meet them where they are and elevate them from there. You got to do the same thing with yourself. You got to meet yourself where you are and hold that grace. Hold that same compassion that you give to others, but with you. And from there, you can start taking steps towards making that change and that shift that you would like to see in your life. So some of the things that I broke down in authentic acknowledgement, which you will see on the wall, is acknowledge limitations and the limited self as the first step to change. Face uncomfortable truths to break barriers and recognize external forces shaping your growth. Sometimes we are so focused on what's happening outside of ourselves, we forget about what's happening inside. And what I noticed in my journey is that I kept blaming everybody else for what was happening inside of me. And I couldn't truly grow in a way that was meaningful and valuable because I was focused on the wrong things. But when I went inside and I started to do the work of asking myself, what's happening inside of here? Now I was able to shift what was happening outside. And that's a powerful step in this framework of authentic acknowledgement. It's not a blame game. There are moments where we are victims and survivors. Let's be honest about that. But then there are moments where we have a choice. We come back to that conscious choice to respond. What is your response? That's where you reclaim your power. You get to choose, do I want to keep moving forward, or do I want to let this one story be the entire mirror of my life? You have the power to take back the pen, and you have the power to write the narrative of your story. So the next step is reimagining roots. What does that mean? That means who told you that, right? There are different traditions, different belief systems, different values that we hold, some of which have come from our parents, some of which have come from different environments, conditions. Maybe it's different education environments that we were in. But there are moments in our journey where we have to ask ourselves, who told you that? Is this what I still believe in this moment? We talked about when we enter into different seasons, we need different things. That is not only us reflecting on our needs, but it's also reflecting on our belief systems and our values. Is this belief still relevant to me in this new area of growth and change? That's an important question we got to ask ourselves. And some of the things that I broke down is challenge and reshape inherited beliefs, unlearn limiting narratives to empower yourself, and reconnect with your true, authentic identity. When you talk about reimagining roots, we're not just pulling up the roots and throwing them away. That's not what we're talking about here. Maybe that is a part of the process, but something else I want us to remember is that we're just looking at them and maybe we need to shift it a bit, right? Maybe we need to revisit the value system and say, I don't necessarily like the values attached to this belief, but this belief still means something to me. So when we talk about reimagining roots and challenging our belief systems, it's just a time where you can sit down, brainstorm, talk to yourself, talk to God, talk to whoever you need to. Maybe it's an accountability partner. Maybe it's somebody you trust. But you need to have those moments where you can sit down and reflect and think about, is this something that's still relevant to me? So the next step in the framework is embodied integration. Because as we know, you can have all the knowledge in the world. You can have all of the tools. But if you don't implement them, if you don't integrate them into your life, then you're not going to be able to see a change.